सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Canto 1, chapter 18, verses 24 and 25. एकदा धनुरुद्यम्य विचरन् मृगयां वने मृगान् अनुगतः शान्तः क्षुधितस्तृष्टो भृशम् जलाशयम् अचक्षानः प्रविवेश तमाश्रमं ददर्श मुनिमम् आसीनं शान्तं मिलितलोचनम् एकदा धनुरुद्यम्य विचरन् मृगयां वने मृगान् अनुगतः शान्तः क्षुधितस्तृष्टो भृशम् जलाशयम् अचक्षानः प्रविवेश तमाश्रमं ददर्श मुनिम् आसीनां शान्तं मिलितलोचनम्. Word to word translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ekada, once upon a time, Dhanuha, arrows and bow, Udyamya, taking firmly, Vicharan, following, Mrigayam, hunting excursion, Vane, in the forest, Mrigan, stags, Anugataha, while following, Shantaha, fatigued, Shuditaha, hungry, Trishitaha, being thirsty, Brisham, extremely, Jal Ashayam, reservoir of water, Achakshanaha, while searching for, Achakshanaha. Pravivesha entered into Tama, that famous ashramam, hermitage of Shamika Rishi. Dadarsha saw Munim, the sage, Asinam, seated, Shantam, all silent, Milita, closed, Lochanam, eyes. Translation. Once upon a time, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, while engaged in hunting in the forest with bows and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Shamika Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes. Purport. Please hear very carefully. This is a very wonderful purport. And we are entering very exciting times in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Supreme Lord is so kind to His pure devotees that in proper time, He calls such devotees up to Him and thus creates an auspicious circumstance for the devotee. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was a pure devotee of the Lord, and there was no reason for him to become extremely fatigued, hungry and thirsty, because a devotee of the Lord never becomes perturbed by such bodily demands. But by the desire of the Lord, even such a devotee can become apparently fatigued and thirsty just to create a situation favorable for his renunciation of worldly activities. Please understand this. But by the desire of the Lord, even such a devotee can become apparently fatigued and thirsty just to create a situation favorable for his renunciation of worldly activities. One has to give up all attachment for worldly relations before one is able to go back to Godhead. And thus, when a devotee is too much absorbed in worldly affairs, the Lord creates a situation to cause indifference. The Supreme Lord never forgets His pure devotee, even though he may be engaged in so-called worldly affairs. Sometimes He creates an awkward situation, and the devotee becomes obliged to renounce all worldly affairs. The devotee can understand by the signal of the Lord, but others take it to be unfavorable and frustrating. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was to become the medium for the revelation of Srīmad Bhagavatam by Lord Shri Krishna, as his grandfather Arjun was the medium for the Bhagavad Gita. Had Arjun not been taken up with an illusion of family affection by the will of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita would not have been spoken by the Lord Himself for the good of all concerned. Similarly, had Mahārāja Parīkṣit not been fatigued hungry and thirsty at this time, Srimad Bhagavatam would not have been spoken by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the prime authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for the benefit of all concerned. The prelude therefore begins with the words, once upon a time. Any questions, comments, reflections, realizations? This purport is such an amazing purport if you understand what Prabhupada is trying to tell us. We are at a stage where we cannot even think of, it is in my case, I cannot even think of any situation where the Lord creates an unfavorable situation. I'm thinking, okay, that's Lord's mercy. But this is what is what we call twists and turns of Srimad Bhagavatam. As I said, we are entering a very exciting phase in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam starts from here, where Mahārāja Parīkṣit is now going to be implicated in something which he's actually not guilty of. But then the events takes so many turns, and we will see it's very, very exciting. And that's why Prabhupada said that spiritual life gives us all the alternatives for a mundane material life. He says, if you want to read a novel or watch a movie which is full of thrillers and action, you must read the pastime of Jagai and Madhai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being angry. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never becomes angry, but he becomes angry at the twist and turn of Jagai and Madhai, breaking the head of, throwing the pots at Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur. So this way, we will see in this purport, what does Prabhupada tell us? Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiriyet nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So we still don't have this naishtiki bhakti, but it is not difficult. It is very easy to get to this stage just by following the process which Prabhupada has given us. The main point from this purport is that Krishna has his own plans. We also have our own plans, but we have to understand that Krishna's plans reign supreme. When the material world throws situations at us, we should not be perturbed. We should take Wallaby has got a writing from a person called A. Milne. A. Milne wrote, when a situation comes to you, you wait, pray, and then respond. I've mentioned this before. Wait, pray, and then respond. So Parīkṣit Maharaj also, you'll see here, he's going to be cursed by Shringi. Does he react straight away? Does he counter curse him? No. What he does is he waits, he thinks, and he takes as Krishna's mercy. When he prays, he takes as the Lord's mercy. And here we can see Prabhupada is telling us that the Supreme Lord is so kind to his pure devotees that in proper time, so this was the proper time for Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Now, actually, if you see, this was not a proper time for Mahārāja Parīkṣit. He has gone through so much in his life right from his birth. But because of his pure devotion, any time is proper time for him. As we know, the saying goes that a sadhu never dies suddenly. A sadhu never dies suddenly. And even if he dies suddenly, he's prepared. Because sadhu is always prepared. And because sadhu is always prepared, Narad Muni, we see his example. Narad Muni was prepared. At the age of 5, his mother passed away. He did not, become upset. He left for the forest. Now, we see that Krishna, he appears for 3 reasons. And one of the reasons is to protect the devotee. And yet we see Krishna gives apparent material difficulties to the devotee, as we see in the case of Parīkṣit Maharaj, in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, in the case of Bhishma Deva. But if we think a bit deeply, it can happen to us also. But if we think a bit deeply, we can understand that there is Krishna's message behind his plans. And we have to come to that stage where we can actually unravel and unpack this message. And if we can't do it ourselves, we have got the association of devotees, in the movement. We've got our scriptures. So we take shelter of the devotees, we take shelter of the scriptures, and then we understand, yes, this is what Krishna is coming for. This is what Krishna is giving me. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as you know, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is our Rasika Bhakta. And Vaidarvi Mataji, very kindly, she narrated the self-dialogue, the monologue which is going through in Madhurya Kadambini to show us how our faith initially develops. So same Vishwanath Chakravarti, he says, okay, if Krishna comes as incarnation to save the devotees, then why does he not, actually save the devotees from the difficulties? So he says, what fault would there be in God's incarnating for some other reason than to deliver saintly persons from suffering? There are other reasons also. And then he again, in the monologue, Vishwanath Chakravarti says that, yes, actually this makes good sense. Krishna has to come only to save his devotees for no other reason. But then he says, but my dear friend, you are not an expert in understanding spiritual moods. So then he says, please listen. So please listen carefully, my dear devotees. He says, it is at night that the sunrise becomes attractive. It is at night that sunrise becomes attractive. During the daytime, if you have sunrise, does it attractive? It feels attractive? No. When there's dawn and when there's dusk, you can see at night the sunrise becomes attractive. During the hot summer, that cold water gives comfort. So he's giving the contradictory, contrasting situations here. During the hot summer, cold water gives comfort. And during cold winter months, warm water is pleasing. He continues, he says, lamplight appears attractive in darkness, not in the glaring light of the day. And when one is distressed by hunger, food tastes especially good. When we are full, even if you offer someone some very delicious item, they'll say, no, Prabhu, I'm already full, We already have that, experience. But when we're hungry, the food tastes especially good. So in other words, he says, to strengthen his devotees' mood of dependence on him and longing for him, the Lord arranges for his devotees to go through these sufferings. And then when he appears in order to deliver them, what happens is the devotee's gratitude and the transcendental pleasure are boundless. So we understand here that, the situation is going to be created for Maharaj Parīkṣit by Krishna. Such an interesting situation is going to be created. But as Prabhupada says here, that a pure devotee, he can understand the signal of the Lord. And then when others are taking situations as unfavorable and frustrating, Maharaj Parīkṣit is ready to become the medium for the revelation of speaking Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Shri Krishna. Arjun also, as Prabhupada quotes in this purport, same thing happened. Arjun was put into bewilderment and he became the medium for the revelation of Bhagavad Gita. So this is what we call, my name should be in the history of books, in the history books. So same way, Parīkṣit Maharaj, by sinking his desires to the desires of the Lord, he became, a very wonderful personality in the history of spiritual life. Same way, Arjun was there. So this Prabhupada says is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for everyone's benefit. Now Krishna, this theme actually comes again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam. The same King Parīkṣit who is undergoing this interesting scenario, he's going to ask, the sages assembled, and then he's going to ask Sukadeva Goswami, okay, now I'm here. I'm going to die in 7 days. What is the duty of a man generally, and what is the duty of a man who's going to die? Bhagavatam starts. And then this theme appears where Krishna is actually, putting these devotees to test. And then this question was asked by Parīkṣit Maharaj, and then this similar question was asked by his grandfather, Maharaj Yudhishthir, to the Lord himself. Says, my Lord, Parīkṣit Mahārāja actually asked Sukadeva Goswami in the 10th canto. He says, people who worship Devis and Devatas, the demigods, and especially like Lord Shiva, Indra, people like that, Ganesh. So they, even though Lord Shiva, for example, is a strict renunciate, but the followers enjoy wealth and sense gratification. They're happy, very rich, they're opulent. But the worshipper of Lord Hari, the people who worship Lord Hari, and Hari is the husband of goddess of fortune. So he should be giving the opulences free. But then Parīkṣit Maharaj is confused. He says, but no, the bhaktas, the devotees of Vishnu, the Vaishnavas are very poor. Ordinarily, they just, like Sudama Vipra, Sudama Brāhmaṇa. You see, so many devotees are very ordinary. So then what is the reason? And then Krishna says, the most famous verse, one of the most famous verse, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Yasyaham Anugrahanami Harishye Tadhanam Shane Tato Adhanam Tyajanti Asya Swajana Dukha Dukhitam. So Krishna says that Yasyaham Anugrahanami, that if I especially favor someone, what do? Harishye Tadhanam Shane. Harishye Tadhanam Shane. Shane slowly. He doesn't do it in a shock treatment. He does it very slowly. Harishya means I take away, I steal. What? Tadhanam, his wealth, his opulence, everything I steal slowly. And then what happens? Tato adhanam tyajanti asya. His wealth has been stolen. And then what happens? Swajana dukha dukhitam. So what happens is the relatives and friends of such a person, such a devotee, such a poverty-stricken man, abandon him. And then that person suffers one distress after another. And then a stage will come when he has to ultimately turn to me. So this is Krishna's treatment of a devotee. Now Prabhupada, very interestingly, in that purport, he says, yes, this is certainly true, that when devotees start practicing devotional service, like in our case, he says, Prabhupada says, they remain in material bodies and apparently material situations for some time. Yes. But this also, Prabhupada says, is simply an expression of the inconceivable mercy of the Lord. Right? Because while we are going through these situations, purification happens. As we know, the most amount of progress happens when we're going through difficulties. When we are going through good times, progress doesn't happen. We are talking especially of spiritual progress here. Spiritual progress happens when an individual, a society, a country goes through difficult times. We know that in 2001, was it 2001? When the two planes hit the World Trade Center, after that, a lot of the Americans took to spiritual life. Whenever any, recently also after the Air India crash, a lot of people were praying, praying for the people who departed, people, praying for their families, praying for themselves. So Prabhupada says that when these difficulties Krishna gives, this is also an expression of the inconceivable mercy of the Lord. Why? Because then we become pure, and when then Krishna bestows the fruits of devotion on us, it is easy for us to accept it. But then it doesn't stop there. Prabhupada, such devotional service is such an exciting process if you understand that the shelter, the shield of protection is always given to us. So Prabhupada says that while Krishna is apparently giving the devotee all these material difficulties, Prabhupada says, in every stage of devotion, however, the Lord watches over his devotee and sees to the gradual elimination of his karma. So Krishna personally sees this, that our karma are gradually getting eliminated. Now imagine a situation where we just have to simply practice our devotional service. And that also is very joyful. Susukham kartum avyayam. So when we are practicing devotional service, Krishna is watching over us and he is gradually eliminating all our karma. So the difference between an ordinary person and a devotee is that that, despite the fact that happiness and distress which a devotee experience, it is very similar to ordinary karmic reactions. But in the case of a devotee, they are given by the Lord himself. So mature devotee actually recognizes, this superficially good and bad conditions, and then he encounters this as a signal of the direct guidance of his ever well-wishing Lord. So we can understand, Prabhupada used to sign your ever well-wisher, because he's a pure devotee of the Lord. His plans, his desires, his actions are in sync with Krishna. So, here the devotee, even though when he goes through difficulties, in our case, just please understand, we have heard many times again, Bhishma Pitamaha telling Maharaj Yudhishthir, now you see the stories of Bhishma Pitamaha going through such difficulty, Prahlad Maharaj going through such difficulty. Here we'll see Parīkṣit Maharaj also apparently going through such material difficulties. But then as when gold is melted, is being melted, it goes through a lot of heat, a lot of tapasya, a lot of tapa. But then at the end, what happens? The nectar drops come out of the mouth of these devotees. And like Bhishma Pitamaha, what does he say? He tells Yudhishthira Maharaj, he understands, yes, Yudhishthira, first thing he says, yes, I understand, you've gone through great difficulty. Yudhishthira Maharaj is very much morose, very much distressed. And the first explanation which Bhishma Pitamaha gives, oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, he says, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthir, the son of demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter, the Vrikodaraha, the great bowman Arjun with his mighty weapon Gandiv, and above all, the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas, Suhrita Krishnas tato vipat. Now, Krishna is with the Pandavas, but still the Pandavas went through such difficulties. And then Bhishma Pitamaha ends this verse beautifully. He says, O king, no one can know the plan of Lord Shri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. So, my dear devotees, if you understand that our Vaishnava's happiness and distress are felt as pleasure and pain, just like ordinary people, but they are different in a very significant sense. Yes? Now, what is the difference between a devotee is undergoing the pain and distress, the pain and happiness under the shade of the lotus feet of the Krishna, of the Lord, and an ordinary person going through his karmic reactions? So Prabhupada, he says that, yes, when an ordinary person going through his material happiness and distress, which are arising from karma, what happens is they leave a subtle residue, right? The karmic reaction, you have karma, then you go through happiness and distress, and the karma is finished, right? So, technically, there's nothing left. But Prabhupada says that actually, even though an ordinary person, a karmi, he goes through this cycle of happiness and distress, burning his karmic reactions, but still they leave a subtle residue. And this subtle residue is a seed of future entanglement. Because again, that seed will germinate, it will grow, ignorance will happen, action will happen, and then reaction will happen. Again, the same cycle continues. Avidya, pap, avidya, pap, avidya, pap. It just goes on like that. So, yes, this enjoyment and suffering actually is leading towards the degradation and increase the danger of falling into, like material pool, the hellish oblivion, anything what you can say. So for karmi, it is a cycle which is spiraling downwards, right? But for the devotee, the happiness and distress generated from the Lord's desires. So we can understand, once we become a devotee, we are under the control, direct control of the Lord. And whatever happiness and distress we are facing, please understand that this is generated by the Supreme Lord's desires. And the difference is here that This leaves no trace of any residue after the immediate purpose has been served. So for us, there's no continuous cycle. As we know that when we switch off the fan doesn't stop straight away. It goes slow, and then after some time it stops. So same way, when we become a devotee, our karmic reactions gets reduced, and then ultimately they stop. And then whatever distress we go through, it is directly because of the Lord's desire to teach us a lesson. Now, the devotee of the Lord, the Vaishnava, he actually understands the situation that yes, my dear Lord is actually controlling my fate, my destiny. He is the one who's completely controlling my life. I just have to understand this and align my desires to his desires. And this way he starts enjoying this beautiful reciprocation with the Lord. He knows that for me, there is no danger of falling down again into darkness, into nescience. What does Yamaraj say in the 6th canto? He tells the Yamadutas have come to him again that yes, my Lord, we thought you're the only master, there's no other master. But here, when we went to pick up Ajamil, there were Vishnu Dutas who forcibly took Ajamil from our clutches. And then after giving the wonderful knowledge about the supremacy of the Lord and his devotees, the holy name, all the Mahajans, Yamaraj, he tells Yamaduta, okay, from now on, please understand this. I've given you the theory, but practically, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu. And then Yamaraj says that our duty towards Vishnu is the only duty in human life. So please bring me only those fools and rascals who have not done any of these things. They've never chanted the holy name, never bowed down before the Lord, never thought of Krishna like that. So this way, we can see that a devotee, when we progress in our spiritual life, we can understand the science behind what is happening in our life. Not that we see everything superficially and that just understand, okay, this is my karmic reaction, or even though I'm doing so much bhakti, why is the Lord giving me all this trouble? The devotees of the Lord do not regard as very troublesome the suffering which Krishna imposes on them. What they do, they find that the devotees of the Lord, they find that in the end, it'll give rise to unlimited pleasure. How? Vishwanath Chakravarti again describes. He gives a nice analogy that if there's a pain in the eye, the physician, gives a stinging ointment in the eye. The ointment in the eye is stinging, but that is the cure for the patient's infected eye. So this way, when we go through some difficulties, we should understand that as devotees, this is Krishna's mercy, and we should be grateful to the Lord, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all the devotees who have given us this science of Krishna consciousness, where in whatever stage we are at, whether it's good or bad, we understand this is Krishna's mercy and continue with the progress of our spiritual practices. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any questions, comments, or reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
I just wanted to share something that I had heard recently. It is from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu regarding distress itself. And you know how he's so good with acronyms?
Yes.
For distress, he gave the acronym IAS.
Yes.
So I stands for inevitable. So some distresses are inevitable. And then he quoted Krishna in Bhagavad Gita to say, just as changing seasons, something that even we spoke about.
Yes.
Second one was A, which is avoidable. So some distress is avoidable. And then again from Bhagavad Gita, he quoted Krishna to say that some distress arise from our own actions.
Yes.
And the third one was S, which stands for strengthening. So in which he quoted Bhagavad Gita to say, what looks like poison in the beginning tastes like nectar in the end.
Yes.
So I thought it was just very apt with what
Yes.
you
Thank
told.
you very much. Yes. So we will confer the degree of IAS officer to you, IAS officer. So thank you very much for everyone for patiently hearing me. Any other questions and reflections, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth-raj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. May you all have a wonderful day. And Krishna willing, we'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 6:30, to continue the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.